There were so many damn good movies in 2019, it's incredible. Obviously, my list is gonna be very biased and based on my personal interest, but to give you a better idea of why these films are ranked the way they are, I've graded each of these movies on 4 different categories. And that's 1, how entertaining it was, 2, the film's ability to immerse myself, the viewer, 3, the film's ability to make me feel emotions, and 4, its rewatchability. So let's begin. Number 10. John Wick 3 is an action-packed movie that loves being an action movie. I mean, he kills a guy with a horse. Do I really have to say anything else? Fine. He also fights ninjas on motorcycles and teams up with Halle Berry and her super dogs. The movie never takes itself too serious, and that's what makes it so damn entertaining. When I saw it in theaters, the audience was clapping and cheering at every over-the-top kill that the Baba Yaga took. This movie is just fun as hell. Number 9. Joker is one of the most unique comic book films I've seen in a long time. Superhero fatigue is very real, but Joker proves that comic book films can still be good and can still be creative with the right director. I love how the film reveals what Arthur is actually doing as opposed to what's in his mind. The big reveal involving his girlfriend really caught me by surprise. Of course, Joaquin is an incredible performer, especially when he does that weird back thing. I will admit, I thought the first act of this movie was okay, but when the first gunshots go off, the film's pacing ramps up significantly up until that big culmination on the talk show. And of course, the film is shot beautifully. The contrasting colors in every scene is constantly making me feel something. This film is incredible. Number 8. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is an interdimensional portal into the 1960s. The duo of Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio is what carries this movie. They're hilarious and their moments together feel very intimate. I don't like when entertainment pieces are made on tragic stories, but what they did with Shannon Tate's character in this film is very clever because she's like the personification of the ultimate success for our protagonist Rick Dalton. The setting up of the third act and the payoff of it was so incredibly satisfying, and it was hilarious. You either love it or you hate it. And what happens in the third act is exactly the kind of ridiculous shit that I want to see at the movies. Number 7. There's no way Endgame wasn't gonna be on my list. I spent the majority of my childhood waiting for this movie, and that's why I yelled in the theater. By no means is Endgame a perfect movie, but Captain America picks up Mjolnir, becomes a god, then spin uppercuts Thanos. I'm sorry, but that's why I watch movies. Number 6. Uncut Gems is stressful as hell. I felt exhausted by the end of this movie because it was so hectic from start to finish. People are constantly talking over one another, so much so that I couldn't hear shit and I started to cry a little bit. But that's the point. The movie makes us feel the madness that the protagonist is going through because of his gambling addiction and his addiction to his sleazeball life. The movie is less focused on developing character arcs and more so explores these bad people and their bad tendencies. And that's what makes this film feel so grounded and realistic. This movie made me so nervous during an auction scene. That is some serious skill. Number 5. Honey Boy broke my heart. Out of all the movies on this list, Honey Boy made me feel the most. There's so much anger throughout this film and you feel it in every scene. Every time there's a bleak moment of happiness, it's like we get this pocket of air while we're drowning. A big theme in this movie is how a child is always going to have the same wants and needs regardless of their social or economic status. That's what's so heartbreaking about Honey Boy. There's a constant emotional struggle between Otis and his father. Written by Shia LaBeouf, the story is based on his experiences as a child and his experience in rehab. That's what makes the film feel so personal. And Shia LaBeouf is amazing as the father. These last 4 picks are all equally as good, but they're from different genres. It was hard for me to decide what order to put them in. I ended up just putting them in the order in which I had the strongest reaction to. But all 4 of these movies are damn near perfect. Number 4. Parasite is a movie that will be dissected and studied for years. The setup in the first act is funny and entertaining, the second act is sad and really creepy, and the third act of this film is so incredibly tense, and it's done in such a creative way. I can genuinely say that I haven't seen anything like this. It's hard to describe without spoiling it. I'll just say I love how this film is shot like a horror film, but isn't just that. It's many things at once. It is constantly misleading you, it keeps you guessing to the very end. Even during the resolution I couldn't guess what would happen next. The writing in Parasite is so smart. There's about 6 or 7 main characters and they all play a vital role to the story. And as far as cinematography and visual storytelling, this might be the best movie of the year. On top of being a great film, Parasite's message and themes on class warfare will make it relevant forever. Number 3. The Lighthouse is the most weirdo movie I've seen in a long time, but in the best way possible. I'm not a fan of what I call artsy movies, which is what I would consider this movie to be. I mean, it's in black and white, and it's shot in this weird Instagram ratio, but it's all done with a purpose. Its limited framing makes every scene feel very claustrophobic, even when they're outside. It makes the viewer feel like they're also trapped with these two men. Because the film is in black and white, the ambiguity is turned up. There are a ton of shots that make it difficult to identify what exactly you're looking at, and the ambiguity of it is what makes it creepy. It feels like an old horror film. There's less jump scares and less disturbing imagery, and more so a scary atmosphere with the combination of the images, the sequence of shots, and the music. The music is the most terrifying. There's a constant foghorn playing throughout the movie, and by the end of it, you will be terrified of hearing this noise. During my first watch, I didn't find it that scary, but it scared me the more I thought about it because the theme of this movie is madness, how boredom turns people into villains, how the scariest monsters come from our own mind. The Lighthouse is the most unique film of 2019. Number 2. Jojo Rabbit is such a clever film. A movie about a young German boy during World War II and his imaginary best friend, Bugs Bunny Hitler, is actually very endearing and very sweet. This could have only been executed by Taika Waititi. His personality and sense of humor is sprinkled throughout the whole movie. By no means does the film try to make you sympathize with Nazis. Actually, it's very anti-Nazi with how they make fun of the ridiculous Nazi beliefs and lifestyles. And the way they do it is hilarious. At its core, this movie is about growing up and wanting to be a part of something. And it uses Nazi Germany to show the extremes a child will go just to fit in. But it's also about how people seek refuge even in the most chaotic times. It takes you on an emotional journey, but at the very end, it leaves you with a sweet feeling. Number 1. My number 1 favorite movie of 2019 is a film that's very personal to me, and that is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. To my surprise, this movie isn't really about Mr. Rogers as much as it is about his message. And that message is not feeling shame in expressing one's emotions, talking about them, and even feeling them. Mr. Rogers wanted kids to feel like it's okay to talk about their emotions. That way they don't grow up and become this big bottle of emotions ready to explode at any inconvenience. And it uses a very specific family trouble as the setting in which this message takes effect. And as I said before, the family conflict is very relatable to me, and to many others who've experienced something similar. The film also explores the dangers of bottling up all those emotions and holding grudges and letting your heart turn bitter. I ugly cried many times throughout the film, and at the very end, I cried tears of joy because the message is so positive. Now that I'm old and jaded, it's hard for me to watch a film that leaves me thinking for the next few days. But A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood had me thinking about my personal life, my family, my decisions, and I can honestly say this film made me want to be a better person. So there's my list for my top 10 best movies of the year. Please let me know what you think of my list. If I'm a dummy for including any of these movies, please let me know what your top 10 favorite movies of 2019 are. There were still a ton of movies I didn't get to see in 2019, which I hope I can see soon. And if you're still not mad at me, I just want to say I actually enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. Later!